The United States often projects an image of unparalleled wealth and modern infrastructure to the rest of the world. However, tucked away behind the shimmering skylines of major cities and past the well-paved interstate highways lies a different reality. There are zip codes in America where the progress map simply stopped updating decades ago. In these towns, power grids flicker with the slightest breeze, roads have collapsed into gravel paths, and public health crises like hookworm, something usually associated with developing nations, have made a shocking comeback. These are the places where homes sell for the price of a used sedan because the emotional and physical cost of living there is a tax most people cannot afford to pay. This is the definitive ranking of American towns where living conditions have regressed to a state that mirrors the third world. 1. Gloucester, Mississippi. Why number 1? Gloucester takes the top spot because it is the clearest and most heartbreaking example of how systematic neglect eventually leads to a town's total erasure from the economic map. The reality: this is a place where the poverty rate hovers near 50%, meaning every second person you pass is struggling for basic survival. With a population of only about 850 people and falling, the town has lost its reason for being after the timber mills closed. Living conditions: there is no grocery store, no pharmacy, and no dentist. Residents must drive long distances for the most basic human needs, and if a medical emergency happens, the distance to a hospital is a life-threatening factor. The cost: homes here routinely sell for between $13,000 and $18,000. While that sounds like a bargain, it comes with Mississippi humidity that is so thick it rots old structures and power bills that spike because the aging grid is inefficient. It is the number 1 example of a town with no backup plan. 2. Whitehall, Alabama. Why number 2? Whitehall ranks second due to a sanitation crisis so severe that it has transitioned from an infrastructure failure into a biological hazard. The health crisis. In recent years, doctors confirmed cases of hookworm in Whitehall, which is a parasite typically eradicated in industrialized nations. This is directly linked to the lack of municipal sewage systems and the failure of septic tanks in the region's dense clay soil. Economic stagnation. The median home price is approximately $19,800. However, any money saved on a mortgage is quickly diverted to dealing with water that backflows into yards and toilets that do not function during rainstorms. Structural neglect. State and federal grants rarely reach Whitehall because the town lacks the political clout or the tax base to provide the matching funds required for most infrastructure programs. 3. Allenville, Missouri. Why number 3? Allenville will blow your mind because it is essentially America's smallest official ghost town that still maintains a functioning zip code and mail delivery. The population, with only 38 residents remaining, the town is smaller than a high school marching band. It never recovered after being repeatedly wiped out by floods from nearby waterways. The shocking price: you can find homes listed for as low as $6,000. At this price point, the real estate is not an investment, but an abandonment. There is no sewer system, limited electricity, and the roads are so damaged they are barely navigable by car. Isolation. The silence here is not peaceful, but heavy. The town has shrunk so much that it has lost its downtown entirely, and the few people who remain live in a state of limited earthly attachments where the next flood could be the final one. 4. Marianna, Arkansas. Why number 4? Located deep in the Arkansas Delta, Marianna is a town where the local economy has essentially run out of fuel, leaving behind a shell of a community. Economic metrics. Marianna has a poverty rate of over 45% and a median household income of roughly $22,000, which is less than half the national average. Homes are priced between $17,000 and $23,000. Institutional neglect. This is the seat of Lee County, one of the poorest in the nation. Instead of investment in education or healthcare, the most consistent state spending in the area goes toward prisons, making incarceration the town's primary economic anchor. Physical environment. Residents deal with extreme delta heat and humidity, paired with a power grid that struggles to support modern air conditioning. Buying a home here means buying into a place the system quietly decided was not worth saving. 5. Johnstown, Pennsylvania. Why number 5? Johnstown is a city that has survived 3 major floods, but is currently losing the battle against the slow erosion of the American Rust Belt. The decline. Once a thriving steel hub of 60,000 people, it has shrunk to just 18,000. The child poverty rate is a staggering 40%, and the median home price sits at $22,000. Atmospheric despair. The city feels like a museum to industrial loss with rusted bridges and sun-faded real estate signs. The skyline is often described as existentially overcast, reflecting the mood of a town that feels left behind by modern technology and biotech booms. Infrastructure. While the city has more services than the smaller towns on this list, the legacy of flooding makes insurance and maintenance a constant financial drain on the few people who stay. 6. Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Why number 6? Pine Bluff is a tragic example of a city that was useful to the American industrial machine until globalization made its labor and mills obsolete. The exodus. The city has seen its population drop by over 25% since the year 2000. As the middle class left, they were replaced by empty storefronts and overgrown lots where homes used to stand. The numbers. Median home prices are around $23,000, and the violent crime rate is 4 to 5 times higher than the national average. The remaining population faces a majority Black community that is consistently underfunded by state-level economic development. The trap. Staying in Pine Bluff requires endurance rather than ambition. The cost of living is low, but the lack of specialist doctors and white-collar jobs makes the cost of getting out nearly impossible for many. 7. Selma, Alabama. Why number 7? Selma is one of the most important historical sites in America, but the town itself has been treated as a memorial rather than a living community that needs funding. The paradox. While tourists flock to see the Edmund Pettus Bridge, the streets surrounding it are crumbling. The median home price is $22,000, and the poverty rate is nearly 40%. Forgotten infrastructure. Federal and state governments provide funds for plaques and reenactments, but fail to provide for working street lights or a stable hospital system. Selma fought for the right to vote, but now finds itself fighting for basic sanitation and road repair. The environment. Residents deal with intense Alabama heat in homes that have not seen major repairs since the 1980s, creating an environment where history is a source of pride, but daily life is a source of frustration. 8. East St. Louis, Illinois. Why number 8? This city is often used as a national punchline for urban decay, but the reality is a story of systematic abandonment and racial redlining. Physical decay. You can see the glittering St. Louis skyline across the river, but in East St. Louis, entire neighborhoods lack reliable running water or trash pickup. The median home price is $18,000, and the poverty rate exceeds 43%. State control. The state of Illinois has managed the city's finances for decades, yet schools have struggled with actual mushroom growth inside classrooms due to moisture and neglect. Safety. Frequently ranked as one of the most dangerous cities in America, the lack of basic police and sanitation services creates a survival mode atmosphere for its residents. 9. Camden, New Jersey. Why number 9? Camden represents the failure of trickle-down investment, where billions are spent on corporate campuses while the residents across the street live in third-world conditions. The contrast. Just walking distance from Philadelphia, Camden has a median home price of $17,400. While corporate headquarters receive huge tax breaks, the local residents still struggle to find a grocery store that sells fresh produce. Crime and education. The violent crime rate is 5 times the U.S. average, and the high school graduation rate barely hits 65%. Public services are uneven, and the infrastructure is described as a suspension test for cars. The bank gap. It is nearly impossible to get a traditional bank loan for a $23,000 house in Camden, leaving residents vulnerable to payday lenders and predatory financial cycles. 10. Cairo, Illinois. Why number 10? Cairo is the starting point for understanding American decline because it shows how a town can go from a booming river trade hub to an eerie movie set of plywood and empty streets. Population collapse. Cairo has lost over 80% of its residents since 1920. Today, fewer than 2,000 people remain in a town built for $15,000. Real estate. Homes list for as low as $10,000, but often sit unsold for years. The ironical truth is that cheap housing does not mean cheap living when all jobs have vanished and services are miles away. The atmosphere. The town is defined by a heavy silence where the street lights turn on for empty blocks. It serves as a haunting reminder that once momentum stops in a town, the decline can be absolute. The existence of these 10 towns challenges the narrative that the United States is a land of uniform prosperity. Whether it is the biological hazards of Whitehall or the absolute isolation of Allenville, these communities serve as a warning of what happens when infrastructure is ignored and economic policy prioritizes symbols over people. Buying a home for $23,000 in these areas is not a shortcut to the American dream. It is an entry point into a struggle for basic services and safety that most of the country takes for granted.